Yeah, so we are live on YouTube on our page, that is on our channel, Mlamlire Farm. So we are live on YouTube on Mlamlire Farm. So if you're not subscribed to, so we are live on YouTube on our page. So if you're not subscribed to our channel, would encourage you to subscribe. We put up training videos with regards to poultry and farming in general. So if you're not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. After the meeting, this particular training will be there afterwards. So without wasting much of your time, let's get into it. So today we are talking about post-placement management. That is just a fancy way of saying management after you have put the birds on the farm. I'm sure most of you have asked or have seen somebody ask a question on Facebook to say, what is your secret? How is it that you are able to attain such good results within a short period of time? And the likelihood, the answer is that it's management. That is what we say most of the time. Or somebody will ask you a question, how is it that you're able to attain such good result, or which breed is the best? And the answer that will come out most of the time is that it's management. So we are just going to talk about this management, which is usually after you have brought in the chicks. So in the past 2 weeks, we have talked about preparation, what you need to do before the chicks get to the farm. We have talked about biosecurity as being one of the most important things that you can do as a poultry farmer. So when we talk about biosecurity, we are simply talking about the measures which you put in place in order to prevent disease from coming to your farm. And last week we were talking about winter management, how to prevent water belly. So we're talking about brooding and the things you're supposed to do in order to prevent water belly from coming onto your farm. And now we are talking about the management itself. How is it that you can attain good results after 35 days or 42 days of keeping chickens on your farm? So this is what we are talking about today. And the first point that I'd like us to look at today is that of water management. Water management, that is the first point I want us to look at today. So water management, the first point that you want to consider when we talk about water management is that you should ensure that both feeders and drinkers are adequate according to the stocking density, and those have to be close to each other. So when you bring in your chicks, stocking density is very important. You need to make sure that you follow a certain stocking density, and that is 35 birds per square meter when you're using electricity. So it's really important that you as a farmer know the different stocking densities that there are. So when we talk about stocking density, we are simply talking about the number of birds which a particular space can accommodate. So it's really important that you know the stocking density and you follow it quite well. So if you're using brazier brooding, for example, if you're using a brazier for brooding, you're supposed to keep at least 25 to 30 birds per square meter. So electric brooding is the one which takes up at least 35 birds per square meter. So it's really important that you know the stocking density so that you are able to keep the right number in the correct space. So drinkers should never be placed directly underneath the brooders, as this will heat the water, causing increased water evaporation. Chickens do not like hot water. Chickens do not like warm water, just like us human beings do not like warm water. And as part of management, I don't know how some of the times we might neglect or put a drinker near to a brazier when you're using a brazier for brooding, or sometimes you might put a drinker, and for that matter of fact, it's not only drinkers or even a feeding pan directly underneath an infrared light. The logic behind that is that the chickens will go and gather there once you have put feed and all that. But the truth of the matter is that there will be times when chicks will be avoiding those spots because it gets too warm at times. So avoid doing that, because less intake of water means less intake of feed. That it is really important that the birds are able to eat as much feed as possible and drink as much water as possible during the first week of having the chicks on the farm. As this will set the pace for you as a farmer on the result that you're going to get at the end of the day. So never allow the drinkers to run dry. You can allow feed to finish, and you can allow the chicks to pick up the feed which is on the papers and all that, but you should never, ever, ever let the water run dry unless you are withdrawing water deliberately for vaccination. But in other cases, make sure that there is always water in the chicken house. So clean and refill the drinkers as necessary. So one farmer at one time gave us a call, and they were asking us how often they should change the drinkers. This particular farmer was changing, and he had just brought in the chicks. He was changing the water 2 times in a day, and the chicks had just gotten on the farm, and he was changing the water 2 times a day. Whosoever told him that was a good idea. But in the true reality, in the true sense of it, that was actually a bad idea, because whenever you start changing the water and all that, you're disturbing the chicks, you're disturbing them from eating, you're disturbing their rhythm and all that. So the best you can do is clean and refill the drinkers as necessary, not just because somebody said so. Maintain maximum water levels until drinkers are removed, approximately 48 hours after placement. So the ideal situation is that you have drinkers which can hold water for at least 48 hours after placing the chicks on the bed. Remember, you are having the chicks on the farm for the first time, and they are getting to acclimatize, they're getting familiar with the new surrounding. So it's really important that you give them some space to settle. Even as you are going to check on them, this is the point that we made last week, even as you are going to check on them, enter as quietly as possible so that you do not disturb the rhythm. The idea is that you want them to find feed, you want them to find water, and you want them to have the maximum intake of feed and water in the first 48 hours. This will set up the pace for the rest of their lives. So drinkers should be placed slightly higher than the liter to maintain water quality, yet not so high that access is impeded. So the drinkers, eventually you will remove the brooder paper, and when they are on the liter, you have seen how chickens tend to deaden the water. So in order to prevent that, put the drinkers slightly higher than the liter so that the chicks are not able to deaden that water easily. So that is one point that you need to consider. Water spillage and wastage should be kept to a minimum, especially during cold season, because lower air exchange during these months. We are definitely in the cold season, and what you want to do as a farmer, as part of your management, make sure there are no leakages in the chicken house. Make sure that the drinkers are well placed, as because if they're not well placed during this particular time, it may result into it being a breeding ground for diseases and all that, especially considering the fact that during the cold season, you are leaving a minimum ventilation in order to bring in clean air and take out toxic gases. But the air that is coming in is not as much as it would be in the summer. So during these months, make sure that water spillage, in fact, let us not just limit it to the cold season. Let us just say water spillage is a no-no in the chicken house. So make sure that there is no water spillage in the chicken house. That is about water management. And these principles are supposed to be followed throughout the chick's life. You have to make sure you only clean and refill the drinkers as necessary. You make sure that these principles are followed throughout the chick's life. So I'm about to change the slide. If there are any who are taking screenshots of these particular slides, you can take the screenshots, and then I'll move on to the next slide. Okay, somebody has sent a message, don't forget to record. So the meeting is being streamed live to YouTube, so it will be on YouTube even after we are done with this particular meeting. So let us talk about feed management now. So feed management. So feed should be provided in crumble form and placed on trays and paper. So once you get the chicks into the brooder and all that, the feed should be in crumble form. Apart from the feed being in crumble form, it should be placed on trays and paper. Now, normal feeders should be placed on the floor to maximize accessibility. Those who have been following us on Facebook, I'm sure you've seen some of the feeders that we advertise on Facebook. They are called table feeders, and they are really good for chicks when they are young because they allow easy accessibility to feed, and at the same time, they prevent feed wastage. If you can have such feeders alongside the feeding trays and pans. So the idea is in the first week, that is the key to everything. The first week is key to everything. So making sure you manage the chickens well in such a way that you attend the 7-day goals, which we are going to look at as we go on in this particular training. So make sure that the feeders are alongside, the feeding pans are alongside normal feeders. If you do not have table feeders, just have smaller feeders placed right next to them. The idea is not that the birds are going to be eating from the big feeders, no. The idea is to have the birds get familiar with the bigger feeders so that as they are growing, they'll be picking from the bigger feeders and they will know how to use the bigger feeders. So always make sure that there are some normal feeders placed there, especially the table feeder kind. We'll send pictures in the group for those who do not know what a table feeder is, just to make sure that you have an idea. The feed level within the normal feeders should be set that the feed is readily available while spillage is minimized. So not too much and not too little, but you want to have feed where the chickens can access it. So normal feeders need to be raised throughout the growing period so that the lid of the back is level with the bird's back at all times. So one advantage of having the feeders already placed in the chicken house, this is all part of management, as they are already there. As the chicks are growing, you start raising the feeders slowly. As the chickens are growing, you raise them according to the growth of the chickens. The chickens will be used to eating from the feeders, which will prevent feed spillage. So it's really important that you follow this particular rule. So I'm about to change the slide. So those who are taking screenshots, Okay, so there are a few people who have joined but have not connected their audio, meaning they are here but they are not here. They are here but they are unable to hear what we are saying. So yeah, let's just hope they figure it out in time. So let's talk about the 7-day body weight and flock performance check. Key performance indicators. Most people think that the chicken's growth is at the time when you start giving them boosters. This couldn't be far from the truth. There's somebody who wrote in the group the other day saying that they've never used a booster before and they were thinking of using a booster. I think if you found a formula which works without you using a booster, you better stick to it, because usually boosters are only supplements. The key to raising a good bird is in the management, the way you manage the birds. That is where the key lies. So 7 days, body weight and flock performance check. So 7-day mortality is a good indicator of chick quality, hatching process, house setup, and early brooding management. Now, on the chick quality, you and I as farmers, we have a say on this one. We know which suppliers supply chicks which are good. So we can choose. We have that option to choose the quality of the chick that we want because there are so many suppliers. On the hatching process, we do not have much of a say on that one because we are not the ones who are dealing with the hatching of the eggs, but the suppliers of the chicks. On the house setup and early brooding management, that whole responsibility falls on us farmers. The whole responsibility of the house setup and early brooding management. So if you look at this 7-day mortality, most of the responsibility falls on the farmer. So meaning that if most of the responsibility falls on the farmer, sometimes we unfairly blame the suppliers of the chick and not considering how well we set up our chicken house or how well we did our early brooding management. So we spoke about brooding management last week. We won't talk so much about it. We spoke about the setup during the preparation week. We spoke about chick quality and all those. But we are going to talk about how you are going to know if you've done well at 7 days. So cumulative 7-day mortality should not exceed 1%. So let's talk about the 1% itself. So let's say you have brought in 150 beds. When we say the mortality should not exceed 1%. So what is 1% of 150? 0.001 times 150. Is it 0.01? So if you brought in 150 beds, at 7 days, you should not have more than 2 mortalities. And so let's take another one. Let's take another one. So if let's say you've brought in 200 beds, again, at 7 days, the mortalities should not exceed 2. So if you brought in 200 birds and you have more than 2 mortalities at 7 days, that means there is something wrong somewhere. Because if you follow the brooding management very well, you need not to have more than 2 mortalities at 7 days. Let's take another example. If you've brought in 500 birds, at 7 days, you should not have more than 5 mortalities. That is if you brought in 500 birds. So this is one of the key performance indicators at 7 days. If you have more than 5 mortalities at 7 days, it means that if you've brought in 500 beds and you have more than 5 mortalities at 7 days, it means that you haven't done the brooding very well. So measuring the 7-day weights will give an indication of how successful the brooding management has been. One of the key performance indicators is that of the 7-day mortality. The second one is the weight. Now, at 7 days, the weight of the chicks should be at least 4.5 times more than the weight they came in. So we've been doing this for quite some times. Whenever we bring in chicks on the farm, we weigh them. We weigh them at day 1 just to see how much they weigh. We can weigh about 5 or 10. And the average weight most of the time stands at 40. That is 40 grams. The average weight most of the times is at 40 grams. So if the average at 7 days, the chick should have grown at least 4.5 times more than 40. So you multiply 40 times 4.5. So at 7 days, you're supposed to have at least 180 grams. The birds are supposed to be weighing at least 180 grams. If you hit 180 grams at 7 days, you should dance as a farmer. It is, you have every reason to celebrate because you know that at the end of the day, you are going to have big chickens. Just by hitting 180 grams at 7 days, you know that your flock is going to perform really well. So it's really important that you achieve the 7-day target weight. And that is why every farmer needs to have a scale. I know you can tell from the eyes to say, okay, these look big, but there are certain times when your eyes can be deceiving you. You can be thinking that the chickens look big, but they are actually small in the actual fact. So by 7 days of age, chicks should have at least 4.8 times their day old. So we rounded that off because 4.8 was leading us to 190, and most farmers do not hit that. So 180 grams is okay for 7 days. So failure to achieve good 7-day weight will mean an inferior result at the end of the growing cycle. Now, this is where the drama comes in. You find a farmer did not achieve the 7-day target weight, and they want to come at 21 days and ask, what feed are you using or what booster are you using? It's not about the feed and the booster at 21 days. It's about the management in the first week. If you're able to attain the 7th-day target weight, then going forward, chances are that the chickens are going to be ahead at each stage. Just by hitting the 7th-day target weight, you are rest assured that your birds will hit at least 2.4, 2.5 by the time they are in 5 weeks, by the time they are in 35 days, 36 days, which means you are able to start selling by the time they are 35. And which is the reason why this is what we are all targeting. All of us as farmers, we want to sell big chickens at the end of the day. So it's really important that you reach the 7th-day target weight. It's really important that you attain the minimum mortality, and you have to know these things, because if you do not know them, that means you will follow whatever people will tell you, even though they are not wrong. You end up buying products, you end up buying medicines which you are not supposed to buy necessarily. So if you've attended both of the trainings, you have seen the emphasis is always on the first 2 weeks. That is where we are putting the emphasis, because if you achieve the results which you are supposed to achieve in the first 2 weeks, the rest of the journey is going to be easy. So let's talk about lighting programs and the importance of lighting programs. So I'm sure you've seen different lighting programs. So we want to put up an example of one lighting program, but we'll talk about the benefits of implementing a lighting program. Now, one thing I have to say is that you have to be sure from the onset that you want to implement a lighting program. You cannot just come in at 3 weeks and say, I want to start implementing a lighting program. If you are going to implement a lighting program, it's better you have it from the start, from the time the chicks are coming onto the farm, and you have it into your mind to say, okay, these chickens are going to be raised. We are going to implement a lighting program throughout, and you are sure about it. It's really important that you are sure about that if you are to implement a lighting program. So a period of darkness is a natural requirement for all animals. That is one of the benefits. We've had people saying your chickens taste different in a good way. So it's really important, and we know that one of the reasons why that is because we give them this natural requirement for all animals where they get to experience darkness. And then as a result of experiencing that darkness, energy is conserved during resting, leading to an improvement in feed conversion. So feed conversion is simply how much feed is converted into body weight once the chickens eat. So switching off the light improves feed conservation. This is feed conservation and feed conversion as well during the resting period. So mortality and skeleton defects are reduced. So it's rare that we have chickens with leg problems. Most of the times we use poultry tonic, which has vitamin E in it, but it's rare we have chickens with defects. It's rare that we have those on the farm, irrespective of which supplier we get the chickens from. And this is directly as a result of the lighting program that I know. The light and dark period increases melatonin production, which is important for immune development. So when chickens have that thing we were talking about preventing last week, water belly, you'll discover if you consult a vet or anyone, you'll be told to start implementing a lighting program. So there are certain things that you do way in advance. Chickens which are under a lighting program have a stronger immunity than those which are not under a lighting program. This is a question which came in the group during the week, talking about uniformity. How do you grow birds with good uniformity? Bird uniformity is improved with a lighting program. So it's where you find stunted birds for farmers who are implementing a lighting program. So growth rate can be equal or better than the birds reared continuous light with compensatory gain when compensatory gain is attained. So usually because of the darkness, it means that the birds will not eat as much as those which have continuous light. But when this compensatory gain is attained after 24 days, these birds can even be bigger than the people who are using continuous lighting. The advantage is that you have fewer defects as a farmer who is using a lighting program. And so at this particular point in time, as I promised earlier on, I said we'll only spend 30 minutes in the presentation, and then we'll have 30 minutes of questions and answers. So at this particular point in time, opening the floor for questions and answers. So you can either type the question in the chat, or alternatively, you can just either raise your hand using the icons. So Charles Msonda has a hand raised. Mr. Msonda, you can please ask your question.
Oh, thank you very much, sir. My question is on the same point lighting program. At how old, or I mean, how many days are you supposed to implement, and how many hours that are required? Thank you.
All right, thank you. So the lighting program is as follows. Okay, so there are different lighting programs depending on what age you want to slaughter the chickens. So the target age for slaughter is at least 35 to 40 days. That is in the 5th week. So the program is from 0 to 7 days. You give them 23 hours of light and 1 hour of darkness. Now, a disclaimer on that, we have adjusted that. We do not start implementing the lighting program until after 3 days, which means from the day the chicks get to the farm until after 3 days, that is when we start implementing. So they will have 72 hours of light. We do that deliberately to let the chickens eat and attain as much weight as they can. So we start on the 3rd day, switching off the light for 1 hour. And the best time to implement a lighting program is when it is dark, completely dark. So from 8 days to 21 days, you give them at least 18 to 20 hours of light, and then you can give them at least 4 to 6 hours of darkness. It's up to you as a farmer which one you are comfortable with switching off the light, whether it's 4 hours, 5 hours, or 6 hours, but not more than 6 hours. So that is from 8 days to 21 days. And then on day 22, you give them 21 hours of light and 3 hours of darkness. On day 23, you give them 22 hours of light and 2 hours of darkness. On day 24 to market day, you give them 23 hours of light and 1 hour of darkness. So that is a standard lighting program if you want to achieve slaughter weight by the 5th week, and slaughter weight being 2.5 kg. Okay, Teddy, you have a hand up. Please, you can go on. I don't know if it is just me, but I'm unable to hear clearly what Teddy is saying. I think his line is breaking. I don't. Teddy, if you could repeat the question, I was unable to hear what you were saying. So again, Teddy is still breaking. So Teddy, we are please requesting if you could type your question in the chat. We'll be able to attend to it. Please, please type the question in the chat. Diana Nambozi, your hand is up.
Yes. Oh, thank you very much for the good presentation. So I just want to find out on the lighting program again, should it be done continuously, let's say the 4 to 6 hours, maybe you do 1 hour, then switch on the lights, then after some time, just like that, or it has to be continuous? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, that is the same question that Selita has in the chat. Selita has a question for the lighting program. Should the hours of darkness be continuous or be done at intervals? The hours of darkness should be done at once. So once you set 4 hours, so for example, for us, the birds that we have brought in, we have set them at 5 hours. Currently, we are giving them 1 hour of darkness. But after they reach 8 days, which will be on Tuesday, we'll be giving them 5 hours of darkness. And we've chosen that we'll be giving these 5 hours of darkness from 19 hours to midnight. So starting from 19 hours, we switch off the light. At midnight, we switch on the light. We usually like to switch off the light at midnight until somewhere in the morning during summertime. But the reason why we've gone for 19 until midnight this time around is because feeding also generates heat, and we are in the cold season. Because of that reason, we have chosen to put our lighting program from 19 to midnight, which is still pretty warm. And then we can simply put the brazier in there at 19 hours. A big one will last us for 5 hours. So throughout the time when the chickens are in darkness, there is the brazier. By the time it is midnight, we'll switch on the lights and the infrareds will kick in. So we are able to do that 5 hours continuously. Do not worry, the birds will just be fine after 5 hours. So Teddy's hand is still up, and then we have Sapunga. Mr. or Miss Sapunga, please go on and ask your question.
Good evening, sir, and the members of this group. My question is, it's on vaccination. I'm keeping hybrid. I was supposed to vaccinate on the number 18 and the 21, of course. Now, the chickens, they had some sort of red diarrhea. So I was advised not to administer the vaccine. Now, my chickens are 30 days today. They are okay. Now, my question is, should I administer the vaccine or I should just leave it like the way it is? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So 30 days, they are almost close to market. So my advice would be to leave them. You gave them the first dose, which was at 10 days for hybrid. And the second dose came in at, that was Gumboro at 10, and then the second dose was Newcastle at 14. So you were supposed to give another dose of Gumboro and Newcastle. Now you have reached 30 days. So when we talk about vaccines are simply you are introducing the virus so that the chickens can be able to fight against that virus in case of an outbreak. You have hit 30 days and you've vaccinated them with 1 dose. So I think it's okay. You can go on until market day. So we have Timothy Zulu's hand is up, and then we have a question in the chat. What causes litter to easily get wet and how can it be prevented? Okay, so and there are several things that cause litter to be wet. One of the reasons why litter gets wet is spillages, water spillages. And in the presentation earlier on, we spoke about preventing water spillages. So that is one of the reasons. The other reason is poor quality of litter. So if there are certain wood shavings or sawdust that you get, chickens do all their business in the chicken house, number one and number two. So when the chickens start urinating a lot, within a short period of time, the litter gets wet, depending on the litter quality. So you need to make sure that even the quality of the litter that you get is absorbent. It can absorb a lot of water. And yeah, that is one of the factors you need to look at. So you can tell when you hold the litter in your hands to say maybe this can absorb a lot of water, this cannot. So litter quality and leakages. So again, another thing that causes litter to get wet easily is the amount of litter you put in the chicken house. Some farmers put way too little litter in the chicken house, such that with a few droppings and all of it gets wet. So sometimes it's because of that litter gets wet easily. So one of those three factors, it's either one of those three. Yeah, so Mr. Zulu, you can ask your question, please.
Good evening, sir. We can't thank you enough for the information that you're giving us for free. And we want you to know that we are very committed, we are learning, and we are putting it to good use. So thank you so much once again for this opportunity. My question is regarding the lighting program. Is it okay to maintain specific hours, or it's okay as long as the hours for the day have been met? For example, if today, if maybe there are, let's say from day 7, from day 3 to day 7, and we said 1 hour of the dark period. So if I do it at 20 to 21 today, does it affect anything if maybe tomorrow I do it from 22 to 23, the other day 24 to 01? Do I have to maintain a constant time, or the times can change? Thank you so much.
Thank you for the kind words. And so with regards to the timing, this is something I should have mentioned in the presentation, but the notes are just too many to compress in one PowerPoint. So when it comes to the lighting program, implementation, if you set the lights out at 19 hours, you maintain 19 hours. So adjusting the lighting program has to be from the end time. So you can adjust maybe, let's say the way we set the 1 hour from day 3 to day 7. So the increment in from 1 hour to 4 or 5 hours has to be upward. It cannot be moved from 19 to midnight. The reason is simple. Just like us human beings, when you have set a time where this is time for lights out, there are certain times when it gets programmed. So even in the chickens, when it is that particular time, if they were feeding, when they get used to the time for lights out, when that time comes, they'll stop feeding, they'll be expecting the lights to go out. So it will be inbuilt in them. So lights out cannot be tampered with. You have to maintain the lights out. Once you set it for good. But for the other time, the other times upwards, those you can adjust. I hope that answers the question. So there are some questions in the chat. What is the solution for persistent flu? I've tried Fluban, but not working. And the chickens are now 4 weeks, 3 days. But I think, but no mortality, right? Yeah, so that is from Mavis. So a persistent flu, there are 3 medications which there is that, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's something like, it has a cell at the end. It was posted in the group. And then there is AeroCare. And then there are certain times when the flu persists. And this is actually the first cause that you're supposed to look at. You're supposed to look at the bedding. Is it refined sawdust? Is it maize bran that you're using, or are they wood shelving? How dusty are those? So you have to start from there. Once you have that answered, and make sure that it is not the litter that is causing the flu, because certain times you may be administering medicine while leaving the cause for that flu in the chicken house. There is no way that that flu can be sorted. But there are certain times when you just give an antibiotic, a wide spectrum antibiotic in case that flu is coming about as a result of some infection. So a wide spectrum antibiotic will not target just one thing. It is a wide spectrum antibiotic, so it will try and deal with everything that may be if the chicken is infected. But looking at the age of the chickens, it is not advisable to start giving them antibiotics. 4 weeks, 3 days, giving them antibiotics is not good, because antibiotics, most of the antibiotics have a withdrawal period. And the withdrawal period means that during that period of times, that those chickens are not fit for human consumption. So usually we do not advise people to give birds antibiotics. Yeah, so that's about the flu. So if
como kirahu kacheni muri munipotezi mina
So sorry about that. I muted her. She unmuted again. I don't know what she's trying to comment. On the lighting program, is it okay to switch off the light at night when the birds are small? Yes, you start switching off the light when they are 3 days old. That is how I prefer. So, hi, I always use card boxes for brooding, but I saw people in the group saying that they are bad. They cause disease. Is it true, or where can I find the brooding paper and price? So the card boxes, there are card boxes which cause disease. For example, there's a picture which I shared yesterday in the group, and we were trying to analyze what was wrong with it, and nobody picked it up, but the person used the boxes which came with the chicks as brooder paper. That shows me that the person was not prepared to receive the chicks, and they had to improvise using the brooder paper. And if you see the instructions from most of the suppliers, they advise that you burn the boxes which the chicks come in. So those are not advised even to keep. But if you look for boxes which are clean, for example, we have a shopping mall nearby, and there are some stores which sell electrical appliances there. Before they can discard those boxes, if I go there and get those boxes and use them for brooding purposes, those boxes are fine. So it just depends on where you are sourcing the card boxes from. Usually, if you source them from a good place, the card boxes are just fine. You can find brooder paper with us. We have a guy who supplies us. In turn, we also supply others. So we do that. Okay. Is it a must to vaccinate? Yes, it's a must to vaccinate. You must vaccinate at all times. So when there are people who have never used vaccine, they've been in poultry, and they might go spreading the message that they do not vaccinate, so they are trying to recruit others not to vaccinate. That is a risky move to take, because vaccination, as I call it, it's protecting your money. When you vaccinate, you are protecting your chicks from in case of an outbreak. Usually these outbreaks, when they get to your farm, they wipe out, if not 100% of your flock, then they'll take about 70, 80%. So you vaccinate in case there is an outbreak of either it's basal disease, which is Kumburo, or there is Newcastle. All these are viral diseases which have no cure, and when they come to your farm, you only treat the symptoms, but chances are that you lose 80 to 90% of your birds. So vaccination is just in case there is that. It's a must. You just have to vaccinate. I've been changing newspapers every day, sometimes even twice a day. Is it normal? My chickens are 3 days old. Maybe no. Actually, it's not okay to change newspapers every day. You can keep, when you spread them well, you can keep them for 3-4 days, depending on how you have set up your brooder. But if you spread them very well, 5 days is enough of having brooder paper in the chicken house. So you can completely remove, depending on, again, the litter and quality of the litter that you have in the chicken house. So yeah, it's not okay. So let me see if there are any other hands. Mr. Zulu, we have, I believe that is an odd hand that is up. So, okay. So let's see. Okay, so there's somebody who is Mr. Msonda Chansa is saying, for those on the Copper Belt, Northwestern and Wapula provinces, you can visit farm depot stores for brooder pepper. So for those who are on the Copper Belt and Luapula, yeah, Northwestern, you can visit farm depot. You can find brooder pepper there at 7/4 50 per meter. Mr. Charles Msonda has a hand up. Miss Maggie Lupenga has a mic open. I don't know if Mrs. or Miss Lupenga, do you have a question? Yes, please go on.
Yes, I have a question.
Hello.
Yeah.
But his friends keep bothering him. Nice. Today they all plan to go to the fun tent. He's decided to take his book in Pacing and Fundamental to read.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Yes, I have a question. And my question is, I did not get the information on giving poultry tonic to the day-old chicks from the 1 to the 5.
Okay. All right, we'll repeat that. Mr. Msonda, you can come in so that I can take up those questions together. We only have 5 minutes remaining.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I've just joined the group. I faced the challenges like the immediate action upon receiving the day one chickens. Like when we see what are supposed to do, I've been receiving suggestion. You give test packs, you give glucose, and days on which vaccine should be given.
Okay. All right, thank you. So, yeah, I would just like to say that we have a YouTube channel, we have a Facebook page, we also have a YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is where we are streaming this meeting to. The YouTube channel is where we put up the the videos where we put in most of the research and we take time to do the editing and put them up. So please subscribe to that YouTube channel. It's Mulamulire Farm. You can check it out. We have a lot of videos addressing most of the questions which have been asked. So with regards to glucose or stress pack, or what do you give on the first day? The question is, why are you giving glucose in the first place? They'll tell you it is energy. When you look at stress pack, you realize that it has that as well. When you look at poultry tonic, you realize it does that. When you look at chick formula, you realize that it does that. So there are certain times we give to chickens the things which are doing the same thing over and over again. So if you choose to give them chick formula, just give them chick formula and that's it on the first day. If you choose to give them stress pack, just give them stress pack. The issue of Zigoro, that can come in if the chickens have delayed getting to the farm. Maybe if you're supposed to pick them up in the morning and you want them to have energy when they get to the farm. Maybe you pick them up very late, then you can give them that. Otherwise, it is something that these medicines do, either chick formula or stress pack, or even poultry tonic. So, Madam, okay, I've forgotten your name, but Madam Lupenga, Madam Maggie Lupenga was asking about poultry tonic. So us, we have decided to stick to a formula. When the chickens get to the farm, we give them poultry tonic because that is what is recommended by the manufacturers of poultry tonic. They say it is good for chickens between day 1 and day 5. So we follow the recommendations on that particular brand of medicine, and that is how we use it because it is recommended. So we don't give them glucose, we don't give them. But apart from giving them that particular poultry tonic, which acts as a stress pack and also as a multivitamin, just to give supplements to the chicks, we also give them a wide spectrum antibiotic for preventative purposes. So in the first 5 days, we give them poultry tonic and Fospac plus T, which is a wide spectrum antibiotic. We just want to make sure that we prevent any diseases. We repeat the same combination from day 21 to day 25. So that is what we do. This is what we do. This is from our experience. That is just what we do. So I'm going to check in the chat one more time just to make sure if okay, so yeah, there's one more question. Can you give the chicks stress pack and liquid paraffin at the same time? Yes, you can. So most people do not even know about liquid paraffin and that you can give liquid paraffin to the chickens, but liquid paraffin is good for the passing of stool. So to avoid that thing that gets stuck at the back of the chickens, you give them liquid paraffin for that. So we'll take our last question and then we'll call it a night for today. So Sapunga, Mr. or Miss Sapunga, you can please.
Thank you, sir. I just need a clarification on the combination of poultry tonic and the wide spectrum. When you are supposed to administer wide spectrum, the antibiotic that you have just said.
Oh, okay, yeah. Day 1 to day 5. You mix them in the same water, and that is done between day 1 and day 5. And also you can repeat the same combination from 21 days to 25 days.
And what should be the ratio?
For the poultry tonic, it's 20 mils for a 10 liters because it is in liquid form. So 20 millimils for a 10 liters. And for the Fosbach plus tea, it's 1 teaspoon for 10 liters. Okay, so I think we'll call it a night. I'm sure even the questions which were asked in the chats have been addressed by that question. So thank you so much for joining the training today. So we are going to open the group. We forgot to open it at 18 hours because of this particular training. We can continue chatting from there. So thank you so much. Thank you and good night.